Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today's gonna be a little bit different of a video. We got this 4L65E that I'm rebuilding, and when I got through it, I realized it's been rebuilt recently. There are some things that could have been caught, things that could have been upgraded, things that could have been done to prevent this from having to come back and get rebuilt. Well, not come back. I didn't build it the first time, but so I figured I was going to go through like a dozen different things that if you're going to build one, you should consider. If you're having one built, maybe ask your builder if they're doing this stuff. Some of them, if they're not doing it or they do it a certain way, I'd probably not have it built by them. So I'm going to reposition the camera and we're going to go through each section or each thing that I'm going to talk about. So yeah, I'm going to reposition the camera and we'll get at it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is your servo and your bands. So the servo applies your 2/4 band for second gear and fourth gear. So the biggest upgrade you can do in any high performance or towing truck application, almost about anything, is upgrading to a Corvette servo, which a lot of 406s are going to have it because this is a common upgrade. But running a Corvette servo is kind of like, we're going to compare this to brakes. Big brakes stop you quicker. So you have your caliper here, or your apply piston that applies the band, and then I have both bands here. You have a standard band, then you have your wide band, and you can see there's not quite about a 1/4 inch difference between the two, but you consider this your standard brakes, big brakes. When you go into second gear, if you have bigger brakes, you're going to stop quicker, so your first to second shift is going to be quicker. Less slipping, less stuff burning up. And the Corvette servo is obviously going to apply it quicker and hold it tighter. So between the Corvette servo and a wide band, you're going to get a quicker 1-2 shift. And then vice versa, when you go into third gear, you're able to release this band a lot quicker going into third, so third gear doesn't slip near as bad. So this is definitely an upgrade that'll help third gear out. The 3/4 clutch is notorious for burning up. So definitely, almost everything I do, everyone I build, I put a wide band in it and a Corvette servo. It's not a crazy harsh shift. It is harsher than normal, but it's more of a quick shift, not really hard shift, but it just shifts a lot quicker. So there are some instances like super stock rebuilds for like an S10 or something. I might keep the stock servo and run a stock band. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about is your reverse drum. Here's an old one, here's a new one. One thing you should always do is check this for flatness. Use a straight edge, like what I have here, and you can actually set it on there and check it, and then shine a flashlight from the backside. If you see light through there, this is warped, you need to replace it. It'd be just like a warped rotor or a rotor with the groove. It's not going to stop as well, and it's going to get hot. So then you can tell from a stock band to, alright, on a stock band, you'll see how it normally rides. We're going to use the old one as reference. But you can see how it rides about in the middle. So you have all this extra space that isn't being used. If you go to a wide band, let that roll. Alright. It uses up almost all of it. So you can see there'd be a lot more clamping force. This drum's going to say stop. The second thing you need to look for, or make sure your builder is looking for, when you're running, when you check your reverse drum, is the cogs here that actually line up with the sun shell, like so. And you can kind of see here already how they're worn out. If you take, this one's getting a new one, but you take the old drum, or the old drum and the new drum, set them on top of each other, you can see how they're already starting to bow out. This spins really quick in the transmission, so over time this heavy metal will actually start bowing out. And it's hardly noticeable now if you don't have a new one to compare to, but I've actually seen them bad enough where these will actually start cutting into the case. So this one, obviously, I can tell by looking at it that they were bowed out, so we're putting a new one in this 4L65. But this is definitely something to look at. If you're not on a super budget, go and replace it. Just go ahead and just put a new one in, because 99% of these are warped here. They're not going to be perfectly flat, and these are more likely already built out, especially if you've got a higher mileage unit. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the notorious Sun Shell. Now, these are known because these stock units are not hardened. So the splines here that go into your sun gear will actually break off. Pretty much every transmission I do gets a hardened Sun Shell. Now there's 3 different ones. Summit Racing makes a really good hardened, lighter weight, not balanced unit. Monster Transmissions makes they call it the Beast. It is a super strong Sun Shell, obviously thicker and heavier. And then Sonix makes what they call the Smart Shell. It is lighter weight, hardened, and also balanced. So if you're building anything that's going to run any kind of RPM, like 7,000-8,000 RPMs, definitely go with Sonix. That way you get it balanced. That way it doesn't shake your transmission apart. So this should always be replaced every single time. Regardless, if you're not sure, if you didn't build it, didn't put one in it, put a hardened one in it. Because this will come back and bite you in the ass. Alright, now we're going to talk about accumulators for pretty much softens your shifts. Your stock ones are more than likely going to be plastic. It's a plastic accumulator. Some of them, I believe 700 R4s. Some had aluminum. But you should always take your pin out and then check for any side-to-side play. Like I can move it this way, but there's really not much. So there's a little bit there. So I would probably go and replace this. Plastic one's got it's in the housing. But, actually, yeah, I'll have to press that one out. But regardless, this one should be replaced anyways. Either go with aluminum or spend the extra money. Sonix makes pinless accumulators. Are actually... That's a pinless accumulator. They actually come with a check ball that you pound down into the hole where the pin goes. You push the pin out, put the check ball in to seal it. It's double sealed, no pins. It's obviously deeper, so it can't do its little tilt and get stuck. Very, very solid piece, and they are aluminum. They have a normal lips or a D ring and a square cut ring for sealing. So if all else fails, go with aluminum upgrade, or get pinless. Never run plastic. Ever, ever, ever run plastic. Always upgrade. Alright, now we're going to talk about your input drum. Your overrun piston, forward piston, 3/4s in here. So on these, this shaft is not, well, it's part of the drum, but it is removable. So the biggest thing you want to check with these is make up like a 50-50 mineral spirit trans fluid mixture. And when this is pressed in, you'll pour it down in this drum. Take your washer and your bearing out. Put it in there, block your bleed hole here for third, and apply air pressure to third gear. If it bubbles, then you need to get the shaft pressed out. You press the shaft out, check your splines for any kind of galling being worn out, which this one is in great shape, so we'll clean it up. You can actually use red Loctite, put a coating on it, repress it in, let it sit for 24 hours, it hardens, it seals, and fix that issue. If it's galled or worn or loose, like pretty much I'll check them beforehand and see if they're loose. But if there's any doubt, replace your drum, replace your input shaft, because that will burn up third gear and you won't even know it. Alright, now we're going to talk about the 3/4, the input drum. There are molded pistons. Instead of seals, they use molded pistons. Replace them. No matter how good they look, replace them. They're not that expensive. They should always be replaced. If you tear it apart, it's just like any other seal, you replace it. Again, they're not that expensive to go ahead and replace. That way you know that everything is sealing like it's supposed to, so nothing burns up. So there's 3 molded pistons. Some rebuild kits will even come with them. It's an add-on, but just do it. All right, now for 3/4, this is your apply piston that sits down in the drum. Actually, I'll make sure you can see this. So this will actually sit down like so, and when 3rd gear is applied, it actually presses it up. This piston is this plate is notorious for kind of having a roll to it. Especially again on higher mileage units, they'll start to develop a roll, and then it inhibits how well your 3/4 applies. So again, inexpensive, measure the thickness, buy a new one that's perfectly flat. This is a GM one. And this one's not rolled, so that means when 3 and 4 is applied, you're getting full apply pressure to the entire face of the clutches. Alright, we're still in the 3/4 clutch pack. Go figure, the notorious one for burning up. So the next thing, you have your, I call them return springs, but once it's built, they sit in here in each of the big lugs. There's 5 of them, 10 springs total. And then we're going to use this as the top plate. So it sits like this. When your clutch is applied, it presses together. You have your 3/4 clutch applied, and as soon as pressure is released, it releases the clutch pack immediately. That way there's no slipping. Now, this transmission didn't have them, and 3rd gear was smoked. I mean, you could see that. I mean, it's completely trashed. So I'm contributing the failure to not having the return springs, load springs, whatever you want to call them. Even if yours has them in there, more likely these springs, from getting hot and just being compressed thousands of times, are not going to be at full strength. Sonex makes replacement springs inexpensive. You can literally just pop them out, pop the old ones out, put the new ones in, just like that. So if you don't have these, you'll get by for a while, but your 3/4 clutch is going to slip, and especially on, because this drum spins fast, you're gonna have centrifugal force. Those clutches are going to be touching. This keeps everything pressed apart. So if your builder says you don't need these, just pick up your transmission, run. Go somewhere. If they say you don't need these, just run. You need these. It just irritates me that somebody spends the time to build a transmission, doesn't put a cheap ass part in that's going to save a gear, probably to save $10, and then the customer's got a junk trans. So if they say you don't need these, run. If you do it yourself, you can get the replacement springs, put new springs in it, put them back in. It's cheap, and it's going to prolong it's going to save your 3/4 clutch. All right, input carrier reaction hub. Super common. You can actually, it has a slight twist, like back to forth wear. If we take this out, I already have the snap ring on. You can see the teeth are actually worn to the teeth in here. That's not supposed to be worn. Fairly, well, kind of inexpensive. Cheap insurance. It's hardened up here. It already comes with brass bushings in it. And once you put it in, you have 0 play, which is proper. You want 0 play. You don't want anything breaking. You don't want metal getting into your transmission, destroying everything. So you should always have that checked. And your builder, hopefully, has enough common sense to check it. For this one, I don't think it was built or has too many miles on it, and it was already worn out, so it tells me they didn't replace that. Now we'll get into planetaries. This is a 5-pin, it's 4L65. You're okay to have lateral play like so. But if you rock it, you should have 0 rocking action, which actually I don't think I have one that has rocking, because I usually just scrap them. As soon as they got rocking play, I order new ones and be done with it. Any lateral, I mean, you're going to ask this thing to grenade. And as we're talking about planetaries, your 4-pinion and your 4L60s, unless you're going to buy a GM5 planet or a 5-pinion, don't go buying the cheap ass China-made ones. I have seen those things grenade and destroy transmissions. They are just not built right. So if you want to go from a 4-pinion to a 5-pinion, get a GM unit. Or Sunex makes a 6-pinion. It's a 284 versus a 306 reduction, so you're in first gear a little bit longer. It's more for racing applications, but it is built as strong as an OE, and that's the only exception I will give to this. Always run OE planetaries. Alright, the next thing you should look at and look for is your builder using brass bushings. Brass. Gold color. Cheap. They're cheap. They're cheap compared for what they do. Now if you look at this pump, on this rebuilt 4L65, that's the OE bushing. This bushing was probably never replaced during the rebuild. Same with the stator shaft bushing for the input shaft. Never replaced. So, you pay money to have one rebuilt, have new bushings put in it. The builder should be putting new bushings in it regardless. So, put brass bushings in it. It's going to make it last longer. They're stronger. You want everything to stay where it's supposed to be. Brass bushings. Not that expensive. Now, like reaction tube, it came already with brass bushings in it. I'm not going to press these out and change them. They're brand new. They're brass. And plus the warranty on this part, I don't want to start changing things in the actual part itself and void the warranty, which there isn't much warranty on it. But anyways, I'm not worried about the warranty because this thing's going to last. Now we're going to talk about, kind of go backtrack a little bit. We're talking about this 3.4. You should run, 99% of the time, run a Z-Pack or an Alto Power Pack. Better grip, less slipping. 3.4 is going to last a hell of a lot longer. Don't run stock. It's, in my closing, I'll go over my aggravation with this. So now we're going to talk about, so I can do this without knocking the camera. We're going to talk about the valve body. Okay, your TCC pulse width modulated torque converter valve, 94, 95 up. These valves wear out super easy. Now, if I had to take a gander with everything else I found in this trans, this valve body was probably never touched. So, most of the ones I do, unless if they want an OE, I've put new valve bodies in for cost. But Sunex Sure Kit. Yes, it takes special tooling. I have the special tooling, so I'm not worried about it. But this fixes a lot of the common issues. You remount the bore, you put a new updated valve in it, and it just fixes the issues. And it comes with a new boost valve for the pump. But a builder should be doing something correct. And then we'll go along with that, electronics. It's relatively inexpensive to put new shift solenoids, a 3.4 or a 3.2 downshift solenoid, a TCC pulse width modulated solenoid, pressure control solenoid, not to mention your harness with your torque converter lockup solenoid. This stuff is inexpensive. You can test it, and if you want me to go over how to test this stuff, drop down in the comments, and I can do a video just on how to test these solenoids. My basic builds, I will test them. If they're good, I'll reuse them, especially if the customer doesn't have a lot of money. But most of the time, all new solenoids, new harness, peace of mind, done. Then to add to that, the third gear accumulator ball likes to punch through the plate Right, yeah, that one right there. They make repair kits for it. This thing is like $12 online for this vehicle. It's got the gaskets mold on it. It's already got the screens in it. It's a brand new plate. Just replace the damn spacer plate. Like, do it right. And then Sonix makes their, I'm going to say plastic. They're made of a harder plastic, but they're plastic check balls. So if it starts to beat the shit out of that hole, this is going to break before that hole gets damaged. If the check ball's not there, it's going to shift a little harder, but the transmission's still going to work and you're not going to burn shit up. Alright, going into valve body and case. This right here, third accumulator check ball. It's actually pressed into the case. Yes, it takes a special tool to get it out and drive one in, but I replace these on every single build, every single transmission. So when the pressure is applied for third gear, this seals off the chamber and lets fluid back off your servo, along with applying third gear. So your servo is getting pretty much, the band is getting released immediately as third gear is applying, less slip, less burning up. These wear out and allow fluid to bleed back into the case, so your band's not getting released as quickly, or it lets the band kind of just rub and burn up. So I always replace these. It's freaking go to dealership and I think they're 12 bucks for this. I mean, come on guys. Alright guys, I hope this helped you out. Nope, I forgot that from when I painted. Anyways, so in closing, go over the stuff that I talked about. You can determine what's going to be right for you. Questions, drop them down in the comments. I'll try to help you the best I can, but I mean, without knowing exactly what you're wanting out of it, it's hard for me to really direct you. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I mess around on Facebook Marketplace, and I've seen a lot of, we're going to go with rebuilt transmissions that people are like, oh, 600 bucks for a rebuilt 4L60. When you look at it, the case is filthy. Like they took it out of the junkyard and put it for sale. Think of it this way. If they took no pride to clean the outside of the case, what kind of work did they do on the inside? And anybody can take a transport, put some clutches in it, put it back together. But there's a lot more to it. If your hydraulics are not pushing fluid where it's supposed to, or it's got leaks, you're going to have problems. It's not going to last. So be careful with the word rebuilt. So yeah, again, I hope this video helped you guys out. So you guys can make wise decisions, make smart ones, spend your money once, prevent problems, hopefully have a good operating transmission. So again, any comments or questions, drop them down in the comment box and I will try to help you out. So yeah, this is the 4L65 that actually where'd it go? Where did that? Anyways, yeah, it's at somewhere. The reverse drum I've been waiting on showed up today finally for it. So now we can start. We have everything. We can start putting seals. This already has a brass bushing here for the output shaft. But now we can start getting this bad boy assembled. It's for an 05 GTO. So we're going to make it shift a little harsher, a little quicker. Prolong the life of the transmission. It's still a stock car. He's not planning on doing anything crazy with it, so we're not going to go super crazy and put all the expensive parts in it. So yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell. We're going to do a lot more transmission stuff. We just got like 8 inches of snow last night, so yeah, I'm not working outside. So we're just going to do a whole bunch of transmission stuff. Hopefully you guys can learn something. We're going to start doing some videos on this reassembly. Not necessarily how to, but I'll go over some pointers as I go along. Again, any questions, comments, anything you guys want to see in future videos, drop it down in the comment box. Thanks for watching, guys.